Okay, first of all, even before we kind of jump into the reason I get to talk to you today, I always like to just do a wellness check with people when I talk because this year just seems increasingly insane. So how are you doing just on a personal level?
That's very kind of you. I'm doing good, doing better than I was, I guess, 15 weeks ago when, work from home sort of started and the entire production became something completely different. I'm doing better these days, although I am like pretty, nervous and alarmed at like recent events, especially since we all live in LA. But, c'est la vie.
Yeah, I'm here in Georgia too, so it's basically just been staying inside. Just been kind of bunkered and hunkered down. Yeah.
A lot of that.
Is working on something like Amphibia, I mean, I would imagine at the best of times, it really takes a lot of focus and creative energy. Is it nice to have that kind of escape from the real world every once in a while?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that like it's been really great to be able to kind of throw ourselves into our work. There was a lot of, when all of this stuff started happening, we really tried to encourage our team to take vacation, take mental health days. And it was a little bit surprising how many people were like, I think I just need to like keep doing this. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
for as long as I can.
But looking back over the last year, actually, I think the last time we spoke was almost exactly a year ago, but it was before season one of Amphibia came out. So just focusing on the show, how's the reception been? How's the reaction been since the last time we talked?
Oh yeah, I mean the reaction's been great, and like I read everything, like, and I do mean everything. Like I've read like every YouTube comment, every weird like, and it's crazy too because when the show first came out, I wasn't used to dealing with that kind of like volume of
Yeah.
feedback. So it was like you'd show I get executive notes and I get notes for my crew, but now like I have like 5,000 comments to read, and I'm like I don't know that all of these are constructive. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But like, yeah, no, the reception has been really great. I think people really like the characters and they like the show. And I'm excited to kind of like season two sort of like doesn't address or respond to certain criticisms I've read, but like it's definitely a more kind of like story focused, adventure focused season, and I'm really excited for people to see it.
Definitely. In reading all those comments, which I mean, you're braver than I am for the most part because I try to stay away from them as much as possible. Were there any fan reactions that maybe either caught you off guard or made you look at your own, creation in a different light? Or, and then taking that a step further, did that change anything with the story going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, and this is like a little bit like broader,
Yeah.
but when I was working on Gravity Falls, for example, and like in 2012, the landscape was so different, and I feel like an audience doesn't have the same kind of patience for storytelling that they used to, in the sense that it's like these days I feel like, and I'm guilty of this as well. I'm not just like the audience, but like when I watch something, I'm like, okay, what do you got? What do you got? Cool, 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 and like move on. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of kind of like our attention spans have never been shorter, and the quality of the content like has never been better.
Yeah.
And when you combine those two things, you end up with like so much like amazing stuff that feels like nobody's like watching it. It's a really unique feeling and a really unique time that we're in.
It's interesting too because, shows like yours where I just kind of want to, every once in a while, I just pause it and I just look at a frame and I just like, I love to just look at all the little things that are in the background. I love to look at the design of the different characters you have because, like you said, shows they have to have a quicker pace these days too. You got to kind of get to that next beat and make sure you're not losing people. But then at the same time, you have the fans who are like super dedicated and they will stop and they will dig into the lore and they will write full on Wikipedia articles about all that stuff.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Um, to get more specific, though,
Yeah.
I will say if there's a comment that I wasn't expecting, it was how many people were like upset that she only had one shoe. I was just like, whoa, this is like a thing. It's like a thing that I wasn't, like a phobia. You know what I mean? That I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting. I had no idea.
It seems like one of those things where it's like it's always going to be in the back of their head, and they're just like, she
Yeah,
she needs to find that shoe.
yeah. I was like, whoa, I had no idea there was such passion for this subject material.
Yeah, really. I'm sure it's just one of those things that like it keeps drawing their attention to it. So it's just like that little mind splinter that they're just like one day she'll find that shoe.
The crazier they get.
Yeah.
Cool.
So again, the last time we talked, it's kind of interesting the way these parallel because when the show initially launched, you had already had a season two order So that was, kind of nice to know that you had more stories to tell. And now, as we're talking again today, ahead of the season 2 launch, you have a season 3 order. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
But you mentioned this earlier when we talked. How has kind of the state of the world affected your production? Did you guys have to make any big changes or just stay kind of flexible and light on your feet to get everything done?
Yeah, the latter. I think that like what this new situation demanded most of all was flexibility. I think that was there came an interesting kind of like a bottleneck with the showrunners where essentially like we're missing so much equipment and we're kind of losing some of the safety nets for quality control that we normally would have. This is like a little bit more insidey, but like here's a good example. There's a step in production where about 20 people get in a room and they watched the high res episode on like high quality speakers, and we all watch it together just to make sure there's like nothing crazy like at the end. But that's so hard to do from home. Like we have these apps and we have certain equipment that's supposed to help us, but at the end of the day, you have 20 fragmented people all kind of like piping in, ostensibly watching the same thing, but nobody is really sure. So I feel like there's a little bit more like faith this time. Like when we deliver episodes, I'm like, that probably looks great. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but so there is sort of a mentality that had to change when we were making the show, especially for me, because I'm very controlling of just like some of this stuff. You know what? If it's going to air this summer, like it's got to go a little bit. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's good that you guys already had season 1 kind of like on the books and done, and you had gone through that process and you probably refined it a little bit and you found what worked for your process. And then to kind of get hit by this, that everybody was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I talk to folks in animation, they say, they're thrilled to be working in animation at this time because you still have that ability to work from home. A little easier than live action production. So I guess that's the plus side of it too.
That is a huge plus. I mean, honestly, it's amazing. Like we're at full production. The show's coming out. Like
Right.
I had my doubts at the beginning, but every problem that we encountered, we eventually found a solution, or we found another fail safe. You know what I mean? That
Yep.
kind of kept it. And I think there was just a lot of like in those first couple of months, a lot of kind of prodding in terms of like, will this work? Will that work? And I think like I'm so proud of our team for being able to deliver this show and that it's airing this summer, because it's pretty much like a miracle from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and I hope fans appreciate that too, that like Hollywood really hasn't missed much of a step. I mean, with the exception of movie theaters, definitely animation hasn't really missed a step. Like stuff is still being delivered on time and as expected. And it feels nice because it feels like not everything in the world has changed. Like we can still count on like great new shows coming out and great new seasons.
Totally. No, and like, man, do we need the content right now?
Yes.
Like to take us to a happier place.
And a happy place, Amphibia goes to a happier place in season 2. Without getting into any spoilers, so to me, season 1, it had kind of an overall theme. It felt it felt like exploration, because we have Anne who literally falls into this magical new world, and a lot of it is about introducing that world and your characters to the audience for the first time. Well, now we know those characters pretty well. We know the kind of the small area that they live in. So what can you maybe tease about season 2 and the broader themes to come?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, season 1 was really to endure you to the characters and make their relationships super clear and super tight so that you could take those bonds, those relationships outside the valley on this bigger adventure. You know what I mean? So if season 1 is exploration, season 2 is adventure. There's active adventure, active exploration of the world at large. Like we're going out of the valley, we're traveling to all these different locations, meeting lots of different characters. And I think it's the sort of kind of like active approach to looking for a way to get Anne home that people should be really excited about.
Definitely. It kind of reminded me, I had a chance to check out the premiere. It reminded me of if you're reading a fantasy book and then, you open the cover and you've got that map of the known world. And then you read the next book that comes out and that map got a lot bigger. So how was that for you and your creative team of getting to expand that world and really explore these different areas?
It was very, very creatively like liberating. You know what I mean? Like in the first season, we did have some diversity of environments where it was like, it's snowy now, or like, but like now truly we can go to a giant volcano. Like we could go anywhere. We can go to a forest with giant mushrooms that are completely different shapes, like kind of brain shaped that glow in the dark. You know what I mean? Like we've been able to draw so much from nature and really design new locations that will feel completely different from anything you've seen in season one. And like a huge focal point is this big city that they're making their way towards, which is really kind of like our Gondor. You know what I mean? It's our center, our hub for this entire world. And like, I can't wait for people to kind of explore the city.
You have a ton of really cool imagery throughout the entire series. And we talked, I think, a little bit about sort of your inspiration. Obviously, the trips to Thailand were a big part of the inspiration. And then you mentioned a city like Gondor. So what were kind of your inspiration anchors for designing this new city that we're going to see in season 2?
So you'll see, I'm trying to think, I think you can kind of see it in some of the materials that have already been released. But the city is very like seaside infused. So like when you get there, you'll be able to even hear the ocean waves and the kind of seagull analogs that we've got in the world. It really feels like you've gone to a completely different location. And like, not to give anything away, but like when the characters are walking through those city streets, it feels different and it's really exciting. I think that for Newtopia specifically, you know, we looked at, because of the kind of story we were telling, we really looked at old cities like Rome and Venice, cities that have such, you know, such a history and like are sort of worn down now and now have something else kind of built on top of it. That's sort of what we were looking to bottle up for Newtopia.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I love that because it adds a depth of time to the world. It's not just, we didn't just drop on a pond and they happen to, you know, make, this is how they live, but there's like a history to this world too, which is really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that because I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. It's fun.
And then speaking of other series, Disney series, which you are quite familiar with, that kind of open up the world and the mystery and the lore as seasons go on. So when season 2 launches, you guys get to be part of Disney Channel's, they have a new Saturday night block of animation. So you get to be there. New episodes of Big City Greens, The Owl House, but as far as I know, season 2 of Amphibia actually has a special homage to another Disney show. So what can you talk about your Gravity Falls episode and also the guest appearance from Alex Hirsch?
For sure. I can't say too much about it right now, but what I will say is 2 very familiar faces will be showing up in a way that nobody is expecting.
That's a good tease.
There you go.
Speaking of guest stars, though, you had great guest stars and a core cast in the first season. You've got another incredible list of guest stars in season 2, and I want to give you a chance to talk about them, but I'm most curious about Kermit the Frog. And it makes sense to have Kermit the Frog here, but also I'm like, how are you going to get this character in your show? Can you tease anything about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, I know it makes for a crazy headline. When I read like that Deadline article, it was like season 3 green light, Kermit the Frog and George Takei to guest star. And I was like, what universe is this? Like,
It's yours, man. Yeah,
apparently. So the whole idea of a Muppet, like being an actor, being a voice actor, was really something that was spearheaded by the Houghton brothers, who are the EPs and creators of Big City Greens.
Yeah.
And it's super funny because like I used to work on Big City Greens. I was directing for them for a little bit. And they kept pitching me the idea. They were like, what if Fozzie came in? But get this, it was Fozzie Bear and he was an actor. And I remember just being like, I don't really get it, man. But like now here we are and Kermit is joining our show and like I couldn't be happier. I think it's such a cool thing to have like the world's most famous amphibian voicing like a character on this show. So it's pretty exciting to see him. I don't want to give too much away about the character that he's playing, but it's very cute.
That's really cool because I love the synergy kind of behind the scenes too. I've talked to those guys a number of times for Big City Greens and they're always crazy and got a ton of energy, and I love that if they had an idea that maybe wouldn't have worked for their show, but they're like, hey, you could take this idea and run with it. Yeah, no, that's great.
No, totally. And not only that, but like we did a piece where like Kermit was like a frog consultant on the show.
Okay.
And like he came in and we filmed him, and he even had a bit where he razzed our casting department and was like, Fozzie was a voice, like why aren't I a voice? I'm Kermit the Frog. And it was like, wow, I can't believe it. This guest starring role actually has some like lore behind it. You know what I mean?
That's really funny. Is that the kind of stuff like, is that going to be an outtake? Is that going to be a side YouTube series? Is that going to be anything that fans would see? Because I know Amphibia has a bunch of kind of shorts and clips and side stories too. That's going to continue in season 2 and beyond, right?
Yes, and that kind of content, the stuff that you're talking about right now, like we have a team that is sort of dedicated to it, and they're always looking for those wonderful opportunities to bottle up those little moments.
Definitely. One that was mentioned in the press release is Chibi Tiny Tales. Now, as an anime fan, I love Chibi stuff. I love that it kind of exists to begin with. It's just a super fun and cute way to tweak existing properties. I don't know that Western and American audiences are super familiar with it. So, what can you maybe tease about Amphibia's part to play in Chibi Tiny Tales?
Yeah, for sure. So like, Chibi is something that like as an anime fan is kind of ubiquitous where you're like, yeah, super deformed or whatever, SD Gundam. But like, the Chibi shorts were brought to me at a time where like I would say I was at max bandwidth a little bit. And so I saw the idea and was like, this is great, super cute, and kind of gave my blessing to kind of like go do with it what you will. And then when I saw them at the end, I was like, these are adorable and you guys did like a great job with the characters. Very respectful. The head writer for that stuff, his name's Dan Siegel. And he's a really great guy. He's a big fan of the show. And when like someone like you can tell that they've watched the episodes, like they've watched the show and they understand the characters. That's the feeling I got from those shorts where I was like, oh, the team behind this, like they really respected what we did. And like for me, like that's a huge compliment. And I really love how they turned out.
Definitely, because it's not just they didn't look at a poster and be like, okay, we can
Yeah.
cheapify these.
Yeah.
They actually get the humor, which I think honestly, even from just the season 2 episode, again, not to get into spoilers, but if I happen to see a guy who's a dragonfly picked him up and he's still cruising, like that kind of humor and the editing and just a lot of superlatives for the show. So I'm thrilled that it's back and we're getting back into it. But before I run out of time with you today, season 1 left off with a pretty significant, you could technically call it a cliffhanger or a bridge hanger, I guess, for a moment. But are we going to get to see more exploration of that kind of big behind-the-scenes clash and conflict in season 2? Do you guys explore those kind of bigger ongoing stories a bit more?
Yes. So great question. I'll say this. For season 1, we had one double-length episode, which was the finale reunion. Season 2 has 4.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like that's where it's like, oh, I'm a little just too excited about everything. Like I don't want to like give anything away, but like we've got a lot of really fun twists and turns coming. We're leaning more into that kind of like world building, Legend of Zelda aspect of the show. I know season 1 had a very particular like flavor and focus, which for me, I would die on that hill arguing that like you have to love these characters, and to love them you have to see them doing ordinary things like getting yogurt and stuff. Like you need to know them at their base, at their core, so that we can like take that baked bread and like go on a real adventure together. That's sort of the hope and the dream anyway.
I will say that watching your characters kind of go on a road trip adventure and enjoy ice cream at the same time is also delightful too. So no, I love those little like slice of life moments that really make it makes them feel alive, makes them feel like real
Exactly.
living beings and characters. Again, before I run out of time with you, I'm sure with season 3 already announced, you're super busy behind the scenes getting everything ready, not just for this rollout, but for the next one as well. But do you have anything else kind of cooking at the moment? Anything else creatively going on, or is all your time kind of sunk into Amphibia right now?
So, I'm always like dreaming up new projects, and like I've already got like some sort of stuff I'm really excited about. Like, post Amphibia, I would love to develop a feature, like something in the vein of a Studio Ghibli film. I feel like that space right now is like not really filled. You know what I mean? And it's hard to explain what I mean by that, but like it's something that like I'm always thinking about. I also would like love to like try developing a video game, like an indie game. That's something that like, you play something like Undertale, which one person made, and you're like, this is like a staggering work. You know what I mean? Like, and it's it was so inspiring. Like, I remember like, it's almost too beautiful. It's like too good. So that kind of stuff does really excite me. And I'm always like thinking about that. I am pretty busy right now. But like it is the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, like you can't help but dream of like what your next thing is. Absolutely.
Well, I'm speaking with and for the fans out there when I say I hope we get to see all of that and more in the years to come. Again, probably my last question for you today. What would you like to say to the fans out there who have supported Amphibia so far, and what can you maybe tease for something cool they get to see in season 2?
I would say, most of all, I'm so grateful for the patience of the fans. This this was a long hiatus, like almost a year exactly. And like you know, the limitations of production and all that. I'm really excited that we're airing weekly this year so that there won't be such a long hiatus. I think that people are going to really enjoy the experience more. But also just like, you know, there are some big asks I have seen from the fans online, and I don't want to be coy, but I will just say that I feel like almost all of them are going to come true.
Wow. Even maybe that missing shoe out there.
No, not that one. Never that
No, that's
one.
too big of an ask. Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I have to dig my heels in on.
Literally, that's a nice pun there too.
Yeah.